Hey, my feel good friend, and welcome to the Feel Good Social podcast. I'm your host, Kinsey, and I'm not going to lie to you. Today's episode is a little bit different than our usual episodes. Usually, the Feel Good Social podcast focuses on very actionable tips for marketing and branding and entrepreneurship in general. Usually, we are interviewing very inspiring entrepreneurs about their stories and journeys in entrepreneurship and all that jazz. But today's episode is a little bit more personal, I guess, to me, because I am sharing a little behind the scenes into my wedding planning process, okay? Which I'm so just excited to nerd out with you guys about, especially the part where I got to plan an event that was totally based around the theme of haunted Victorian Garden Party, right? So that's probably mostly what this episode is going to be about. Me just geeking out about how, all the theme of this haunted Victorian Garden Party came together and all that jazz. And of course, I'll be sharing a few tips that I have learned in this process of event planning for a good amount of money and a good amount of people, although we are only having 25 people at our wedding. So, there's that caveat. But anyway, long story short, this episode is going to be focused mostly on this topic of planning the wedding that, as of this recording, is happening in about 10 days. But as of the release of this episode, happened yesterday. Yesterday on Halloween, I should have married my soulmate, if you will, Brett, my hopefully now husband, as long as everything went, well and nothing went wrong. But anyway, that is what today's episode is going to be about, because I just wanted to share this special day with you, share, what I've learned in this process, because honestly, I feel like I've learned quite a bit when it comes to event planning now, and also especially how to create a cohesive event that goes around a specific theme, because that's been super fun and super wonderful for my branding nerdy side, right? So anyway, that's what we're going to be sharing in today's episode. I just want to give you a quick warning because, not everyone's into weddings. So if you are very new to the Feel Good Social podcast as a listener, thank you so much for joining us, my friend. And if you're not interested in learning about the wedding at all, then that's totally cool. I hear ya. Head back and listen to any of our other previous Feel Good Social podcast episodes. I swear we were at 140 something of them now. And any other of our past episodes, you will find some actionable tip that you can take and implement today for your business, or be inspired by another entrepreneur or something like that, right? But today's episode is all about celebrating the wedding with you. And we're going to do that just by, I'm going to be just dishing up a lot of insight into behind the scenes of how I've done this whole thing, right? So I hope that our, longtime listeners might find this interesting. I'm very, very excited to tell you all the scoop and just celebrate this with you today. But, of course, if you are one of those longtime listeners that's okay, Ken's I love you, but I really don't want to listen to 40 minutes of you just gushing about your wedding, right? That's totally cool, my friend. Go back and listen to another episode as well. Okay. It's totally cool. And we will be back next week with more actionable marketing tips. Actually, I am also going to be sharing a mini-sode this week that I am very excited about, because it is going to be 6 fun things that you can include on your brand's About Me page of your website. And it's totally inspired by the wedding website that I created for me and Brett. But it's very, very fun. I'm going to be just explaining some of the things that I've added to our wedding website's About Me page. So listing fun facts, doing a timeline by the numbers kind of thing. All the, I've included at least 6 fun things, right? Inspired by Brett and Mai's wedding website, but it's totally stuff that you can use for your brand. So anyway, that episode is coming out on Thursday. It's going to be a 12-minute mini-sode, so keep an eye out for that. But in today's episode, we are celebrating getting married and mostly planning this wedding, because it's been fun, it's been educational, it's been maybe inspirational in a way. And also, I'm just excited to celebrate with you because my Feel Good listeners, you are so wonderful. And I just feel like you're a part of my crew and I want to celebrate this day with you. So, anyway, that is what this episode is going to be about. You will probably hear some actionable tips when it comes to event planning. You might hear some fun insight into how to create a cohesive theme when it comes to a virtual or in-person event or whatever that is. But yeah, also you'll just hear about me just gushing about my wedding. Because today I am getting married, or yesterday, I guess. I hopefully did. So, anyway, that is what today's episode is all about. Thank you so much for tuning in, my Feel Good listener. I love you so much. Let's go ahead and dive in. Hey, friend, and welcome to the Feel Good Social Podcast. I'm your host, Kinsey, and I'm here to help you market your business in a genuine way that works without wasting your precious time. On this show, we chat about social media strategy and mindset tips with a focus on, you guessed it, feeling good. So sit back, relax, and enjoy some genuine conversation for the good of your biz. Real quick, have I invited you to join the Feel Good Social Club yet? Oh man, my friend, I would love for you to check out our new monthly membership for down-to-earth entrepreneurs who are ready to create content with ease, actually show up and strategically market your business online every month, and also make friends with rad down-to-earth entrepreneurs who are just like you, who get it, who are in the posting trenches with you, and who are ever ready to give you a friendly air high five or kick in the accountability booty whenever you need it. The Feel Good Social Club is where it is at. Check it out, feelgoodsocial.com/club. In the club, we have a content library full of Canva templates and tutorials and resources to help you make content creation as easy as possible. We also have monthly content planning workshops where we all come together and talk about the upcoming month's strategy for our content. And we also have community forums where you can get together, ask questions of other club members, brainstorm ideas, ask for feedback. So definitely check it out, feelgoodsocial.com/club. Our Feel Good members are seriously some of the most amazing people that I have ever met. And I would love for you to join us, feelgoodsocial.com/club. Check it out. Join today. We would love to see you in there, my friend. All right, let's dive back into today's episode. All right, my friend. So now that I took a long time explaining all the things that we're going to be talking about in the intro of this video, I'm so excited that you have decided to continue tuning in. Thank you so much for celebrating this special day with me and or being interested in just hearing about the process or hearing my tips for event planning, because let me tell you, planning a wedding is a doozy for sure. It's one of those things that I went into and I was like, oh, like this, like whatever. Like it was kind of one of those things where, okay, let me back up real quick because I should probably give you just a little bit of insight into how this whole wedding thing got started, right? So anyway, Brett and I have been dating for like almost 6 years now, actually. And we, started dating in Summit County and all that stuff. And then 8 months into dating, we decided to take this like big 6-month trip to Asia together, which was a very great test for our relationship for sure. Because I think after that Asia trip, I was like, okay, we made it through being together every day for 6 months, So I think that this thing is probably legit and gonna last, right? But still, it took him 5 years to propose to me, which whatever. Throwing him shade now that, he finally actually put the ring on it. But anyway, he finally proposed, quote unquote, finally, in January of 2022. I actually did record another podcast episode just kind of sharing that proposal story. And that's probably actually one of the only other personal stories that I've really shared that has nothing to do with business on this podcast, right? But if you do want to go listen to the engagement story episode, it's episode 106. It's actually like a quote unquote, not so picture perfect proposal. And I think it's hilarious. Like the way we ended up getting engaged, it was somewhat on accident and it ended up with me accidentally finding the ring under a chair in our living room after doing just a little bit of snooping, but that's all I'm going to tell you about it. So if you want to go back and listen to episode 106, that's where I share the whole story. It's only like 20 minutes and it's pretty funny, just if you're interested, right? But anyway, we got engaged in January of 2022. Honestly, when we got engaged, I was kind of under the impression myself of, okay, this is going to be a long engagement. Like, I specifically remember telling several family members, don't worry. I don't know why I would say don't worry, but I think I did. Don't worry. It's going to be a very long engagement, right? I think I was trying to like stem off any questions of like, well, when's the wedding? That sort of thing, you know? But anyway, in my own mind, I was like, okay, like we're just going to wait a year at least until I even start thinking about actually getting married and like the wedding and stuff, right? But actually in, what was it, May, Brett and I ended up selling our home that we had purchased together. And so it really made sense for us to get married this year because of taxes and all that stuff. And we were kind of both under the impression of, okay, whatever. We're pretty much already married anyway. So like, why not just like tie the knot this year? And at first it started out as a, okay, well, maybe we do just like an elopement abroad, right? But then I really wanted my mom there. And then I kind of wanted my grandma there and all these different things. So then it turned into, well, possibly like a very, small elopement / micro wedding in Colorado or something. And then, of course, when you start inviting family members, of course things grow, right? Of course the guest list grows and like, it's like, okay, well, I am very close with several of my cousins. I would love to have them there. It'd be awesome to have the families get together and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, it turned into, let's go elope in Ireland to now we're having a micro wedding in Colorado, which I'm going to be honest with you, Brett's a little bit nervous about. He's, not a huge like stand up in front of a crowd of people person and get married kind of thing. And so it's only 25 people, but he's still like a little bit even like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of people, which I get, and I'm a little bit nervous too myself. So, oh well. But anyway, so long story short, we are getting married this year. At the time of this recording, cross your fingers that we got married yesterday. If you want to check and make sure, head to @FeelGoodSocial on Instagram. I'm not planning on having my phone on me a lot of the days. I think I'm actually going to designate one of my friends to hold my phone the entire day and just take a bunch of like, candid photos or whatever, just so that I have them, right? But I am planning on at least sharing like a confirmation post to my Instagram stories saying, hey, we got married. So if you want to go check it out @FeelGoodSocial on Instagram. I'm also planning on sharing like several just behind the scenes, photos on my Instagram stories and stuff around this time of the release of this episode, just because I've shared some of the wedding process on my stories already. And I just want to share it with you guys over there as well. So anyway, head to @FeelGoodSocial if you want to check and make sure that we got married and actually see some behind the scenes of this wedding that I have now planned that I'm going to be talking about on today's episode, right? Because, and especially if you are listening early, like close to the time of this episode release, the Instagram stories of our wedding should definitely still be up there. I'll probably go ahead and share just a regular post with like a carousel of photos too, just so if you're listening later on, you can see those too. But anyway, my friend, so now currently we are getting married on Halloween of this year. It is a micro wedding. Like I said, it's only 25 people, which, my antisocial husband, Brett, was like, wow, that's a lot more than I was expecting. When I told him the number, and I was kind of like, okay, babe, that's actually a really real small wedding for the majority of people out there, but oh well, and I think that he'll really end up having a good time. I think it's about like the anticipation of like having to make sure everyone's happy and all that different stuff that he's nervous about, and the anticipation of being around like a lot of people and stuff. But once he gets to the day, like I know him, he'll be good. He'll have a great time because he'll just love to see everyone together and stuff like that. But anyway, Halloween, brunch, morning, wedding. We have decided the theme is haunted garden party, actually haunted Victorian garden party for a few reasons, right? Mostly it's because, well, Halloween, we had to have some haunted aspect in there. And also Brett is very, very into like kind of gothic looking, like dark, like vampire vibes in a way, right? He always tells me that he wants us to get a quote unquote vampire house when we grow up. That's also in quotations. Because he always wants that like gothic Victorian looking house and like put like a stuffed raven and like velvet draperies on the wall and all that stuff. And I'm like, fine, babe, we can get that house, but like you can never leave me alone in it because I will talk myself into ghosts living there. And two, like I also need my A-frame cabin in the woods as well. Like we can get both houses, but like if you get one, I get one. So anyway, Brett really loves that like theme and stuff. And I think the fact that it's on Halloween, it's a little different, it's a little unique, and just incorporating like some different vibes and stuff like that is like makes it more exciting for him actually. Cause you know, like I said, he's just a little bit nervous. So that is one of the reasons that we chose haunted Victorian garden party theme. And the garden party theme comes from actually me. Well, okay, so we are getting married at the Denver Botanic Gardens in Denver, obviously. But there is this very, very cool iron green solarium in the gardens. Okay, it looks kind of Victorian-y. It's like a green iron and it has like big glass windows, right? And it's in the middle of this specific area of the gardens called Woodland Mosaic, and which is I just think such a cute like woodland fairy name, right? And so it looks very like Victorian and like kind of going along with the haunted Victorian theme. And it's in the gardens, right? This is kind of how I like came to this theme. And then also, I have always kind of loved the idea of having like a French garden party looking wedding in a way, right? Like, I don't know, just like looking at my wedding Pinterest board that I've had over the years, for sure. Back in the day, I was looking at like the princess vibes, right? In high school, definitely looking at those princess vibes. Then probably more into my 20s, I was looking at more of the bohemian vibes, right? I love how you can see the way your taste adjusts just by going back to your old Pinterest boards, right? But anyway, more recently, I have really, really enjoyed kind of that like more wild theme, less like put together, like lots of different wildflowers, lots of different arrangements on the table, different sizes, like not a lot of uniformity, right? I really love the vintage aesthetic as well. So it's like old vintage, like glassware, old vintage vases, you know, and also, what else is vintage? Oh, like just like the vintage feel, right? Because I'll get into like the theme and all of the different decorations a little bit because it's like what I'm most proud of and my favorite. But anyway, yeah, I've always really loved that theme, like lots of like brass and gold elements, you know what I mean? And just kind of a mixture. And there's kind of, it's almost as if it's like a French Victorian garden party vibe. If you Pinterest that, you will see what I mean because that inspiration will come up, right? So anyway, this is kind of how I came up with the theme for a wedding because it's in the garden. We needed the haunted for Brett and the date, right? And then also like me just loving that like garden party look with like the vintage vibes and all that different stuff. So it all actually has come together and worked out very well. And yeah, it's going to be kind of a weekend long affair. We have several members of the family flying in from out of state. So we are going to be hosting, you know, a going out on the town, quote unquote, for Halloween, dressing up on Saturday night before the actual date. And then Sunday night before dinner, and then Monday morning brunch is the wedding, and then everyone can just, you know, leave by 2 p.m. after the wedding, and it's going to be so not a big deal, right? So this is like the general aspect of the wedding and all that different stuff. And I've got to tell you, like when I first went into, okay, like when I first, I guess, accepted, like, okay, I'm actually going to be planning a wedding. Like I got to actually plan this thing, right? You know, went into the wedding planning process, I think, a little bit confident, or just like thinking that it wasn't going to be as much as it really was. Right. Like, and especially too, because I myself was like, okay, we're going to keep it small. We're going to keep it simple, like all this different stuff. And even though we are hosting a very small and simple wedding, oh man, did I not realize all the things that I needed to know when it came to wedding planning, right? And I do wish somewhat that I would have, taken a little bit more time to really like sit down and like write out all the things and my thoughts and like notes, and just take a little bit more time to kind of like outline, oh, okay, so what vendors do we think we're going to need? Oh, okay, so like what decorations do we think we might need? Oh, okay, so like what paper products do I think we might need? Instead of just like throwing it all together as these ideas came to me. But, in hindsight, you see these things and everything still worked out. So I guess like the first tip that I want to share with you, my feel good listener, when it comes to planning any sort of event, whether virtual, in person, whether for your business or personal event, such as a wedding, is to just like first sit down and like brain dump your ideas, try to like just get all of the ideas and the things onto paper. Try to like make a list of all the logistics, such as like guest count. Okay, where's the venue? Or like what venues do we think we might want it to be? What themes do we think we might want it to be? What vendors do we think we might need? Just kind of brainstorming some of these questions and at least getting all of your ideas onto paper is helpful, I think, so that you're not constantly like, oh, shoot, I knew I needed to do something, but now I forget what it was. Right? Because that happens a lot. And then what I would probably suggest when it comes to like the event planning part of it, which I totally geek out about so much when I think about it, because it's actually very similar to how I teach social media batch planning, right? My advice for you is to start kind of big picture and then start zooming into the more intimate details, right? And this is how I actually teach batch planning content for social media, is every month start with a big picture view of your month and like very much like label or figure out the important things that you need to hit for the month, the important themes, the events that you need to promote, anything like that, right? And then slowly start zooming into the intimate details of like creating your individual posts and all that different stuff, right? Like I don't want you to sit down and just start creating post 1 of the month, move on to post 2 of the month, move on to post 3 of the month. No, first thing you need to just like look at the big picture view and decide what your strategy is. And then you can zoom in and start creating those individual posts, right? And that is what event planning is like as well, which I geek out about. Like, what I would really recommend that you do for any event that you plan in the future is start big picture, right? Think of those big picture things. What's the guest count? Like, where do we want the venues to be ideally? Like, often another thing I learned too, is the guest count is going to dictate where the venue is in a way, because a lot of event venues are like $8,000 to $10,000, depending on where you are. Probably even more in other places in the United States. But, it's venues can be very expensive and they're often set up for bigger guest counts, right? And so for me, for Feel Good Social, oh my gosh, I'm totally getting brandy here. For the wedding, with only our 25 guest list number, or we were working with like 15 to 40 was like the numbers we were working with when we first started. You can guess which end of the spectrum Brett was on for the guest list count and which end of the spectrum I was on for the guest list count. Anyway, I learned through the wedding planning process and trying to find a venue and all that different stuff that I firstly, I didn't want to spend so much money on an event venue that also was set up for 150 people and would feel awkward with our like smaller guest count, right? So those kind of bigger picture details really, really help you start to solidify those important decisions, those important big picture details. I don't know if that's the word I'm looking for, but anyway, those big picture things then dictate the rest of your decisions, right? The event venue somewhat dictates like the theme in a way, right? Like I was saying before, our guest count somehow dictates or informs our venue decision, right? And all that different stuff. And then the vendors came from the venue. Like it all kind of started fitting together like this puzzle piece. But if I would have, just sat down and immediately ordered like $500 worth of decorations or something like that was the first thing that I did, then, by the end, I probably would have wasted some money on some decorations and also maybe changed my mind on things and all this different stuff, right? So starting with those bigger picture, important details and decisions will help you then slowly start to form all the pieces of this event puzzle that you are planning so you can slowly start to zoom in. So that was one of the first things that I learned with this event planning process. After searching through lots and lots of places, going down lots of different Pinterest holes and Google avenues, trying to figure out where the heck we want to get married and have this wedding and what do we want to look like and all the different stuff, I finally decided on the Denver Botanic Gardens. It's very, very awesome because it's actually a nonprofit. So not only do they have reasonable prices, and we are supporting like an awesome nonprofit in like Brett's home state of Colorado, in the state where I've lived for several years, and like this place that allows for awesome exotic like plants to thrive in the mountains and all this different stuff. But also because it's a nonprofit, they don't have tax on top of the venue price. So that was like another really interesting thing that I learned as well, is that, maybe if you are hosting a smaller event, this is something that I kind of made a note of for the future for Feel Good Social. If I want to host in-person events or something, check out like nonprofits in your local city. Like the Botanic Gardens in Denver is one, probably, I don't know, probably the gardens in other cities are as well. But also just other event or other nonprofits with event spaces. It's a really cool way to possibly save a little bit of money, but at the same time be supporting a cause that you might want to support, right? So that's just another really cool thing to think about that I didn't even really realize until I booked the Denver Botanic Gardens. But anyway, the event venue came from me going down a Pinterest hole, and I ended up on some dude's blog, of course, with a picture of this green solarium building, right? And it was a Denver dude who apparently helps people plan weddings and officiates weddings or something like that. And I'm going to be honest with you, the dude seemed cool, but I was totally there just like stalking photos of different places in Colorado that micro weddings happen, right? And so I saw this like green solarium photo on his blog, and I was like, oh, ooh, is this in Colorado? And of course, he didn't say where it was. So I, of course, had to go down another Google hole. I was like Googling like green glass building in Colorado or something. And fairly soon landed on Denver Botanic Gardens website. I reached out to them. The only date they had available that quickly was like October 3rd or Halloween. And Brett and I kind of both looked at each other and we were like, Halloween. Okay, let's do this thing, right? So we ended up booking it for Halloween. That was super helpful. Then we kind of honed in on our guest list. Believe me, it was very, very difficult to get it down to 25 people. Just because, it sucks. It sucks so much in a way that like, you always have people who you would love to invite and who have been important in your life and all that different stuff. But when you're trying to have a micro wedding and keep things very small and intimate and all that different stuff, it's hard. It's hard for sure. I had to reach out to a few extended family members and just say, hey, we're keeping our wedding very, very small. I want you to know that you're important to me and I would have loved to invite you, but like we're just keeping it intimate. And so we'd love just like your well wishes or something like that, right? Like I definitely had to have a few awkward conversations with some extended family members. Unfortunately, like we didn't really invite a lot of friends or anything like that, but hey, that's me and Brett, and that's what we decided we wanted to do. From there, I kind of started honing in on vendors, I think was my next step. I knew we wanted a photographer. photographer, of course. So I started looking into different photographers. There's so many amazing photographers out there, honestly. I think I went to like the Knot or something, like a vendor website for weddings and stuff. And I just went through a bunch of photographers. I reached out to quite a few who felt like fit the vibe that Brett and I really like. Brett really, he's a photographer himself. So he really appreciates a photographer with a good eye. He also really likes photographers who edit in a realistic way, right? Versus kind of quote unquote over editing in a more artistic way, or really changing the colors, which I appreciate myself. But that's what he likes, and I also like that style as well, the more realistic style. So we ended up finding a photographer who's super awesome, Kate Merrill. I will link all of our vendors in the show notes as well, just so that you can go check them out if you want to and stuff. But she's super cool. She supports LGBTQ plus couples. She really is very like, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh my gosh, I can't remember. I can't think straight, guys. It's literally 10 days till our wedding. But anyway, inclusive. She's very inclusive, which is super cool. Like, I love supporting people who support people. So she is super wonderful. And she's actually very, very reasonably priced because she lives in Denver and it's a Monday morning. So she's like, sure, I'll do it. Great. So she is wonderful. I found her. I went with a caterer. Actually, the event itself had a list of preferred caterers, and one of them really, really focused on like international cuisine, right? I think Roots Catering is their name, and they're like, little motto or whatever it's called is like, we cook your food or something, or we cook the food you grew up with or something like that. It's like they are really good at cooking like international cuisine and stuff like that, which is super awesome because Brett and I did that Asia trip, right? So actually what we're having Roots Catering cook for us is a Vietnamese caramelized ginger chicken dish with jasmine rice, which is just kind of like, I don't know, a nod to Brett and I and our relationship and stuff. So that's going to be very, very fun. The guy who I've been talking to with Roots Catering, JJ, has just been super, super sweet and amazing. And so totally recommend them. I'm super excited for them to cook this dish for us. And they're just have been very awesome about, flipping the space, the solarium space for us during the wedding, right? So that's going to be great. I found a string trio to play for us at the solarium. So the reason we decided to go with live music is because the solarium where we are getting married, they don't allow for amplified sound here, right? Like, so we can't play any music like off of like any sort of speaker, right? So they only really allowed for the kind of live music, which I love because I really do love like the live music. Both Brett and I were in band. We actually both played the alto sax when we were like in middle school, right? But still, it's like kind of a fun little thing that we splurged on for this live music. I honestly just was okay with going with like a flute soloist, right? Which is like the lady we hired. That's her main thing that she does. Because I think the flute is pretty. And, I thought, okay, well, we're springing for the live music, but we don't need 3 people. But this was one of those things that Brett decided to, I think he literally said to me, this is one thing I'm going to put my foot down for, which is kind of funny to me because he hasn't really had, this is normal for guys. They don't really have a lot of, not say. I always wanted Brett to have say in the wedding planning process. They just don't really have a lot of care when it comes to the wedding planning process for most people, usually, right? It's a normal thing. I have found out from just talking to a lot of people, and that's kind of how Brett was too. So, if you're going through that, my friend, that's totally normal. But anyway, we got the string trio, and it's super cool. Like, they're going to be beautiful. It was a little bit of a splurge, but the woman who we're working with is super nice. And I just think it's going to be awesome to walk down the aisle to this. And then they'll play a little bit into the reception as well. We are actually walking down the aisle to Black Sabbath Changes. This was Brett's idea. And honestly, like, I do like Black Sabbath. Would I have ever thought that we were going to play them at our wedding for the processional? No. And especially because Changes is actually a heartbreak song, if we're honest. It's like Ozzy Osbourne like broke up with a woman or something. But it's just going to be the instrumental. And actually, if you listen to the instrumental of Black Sabbath Changes, it is gorgeous. Like once I listened to the instrumental of it, I was like, oh, this is perfect for our wedding processional, right? And it's just instrumental. And like I'll laugh about it. And like no one really knows that. I mean, maybe people will know it's a heartbreak song because I'll probably tell them, right? But oh well. And I mean, little side note, I've actually created alternative lyrics to the song in my head that are basically the opposite of the lyric of what the actual lyrics are. And it's a really beautiful song when you change the lyrics like that. So, it's going to be great. We're walking down the line to that. I'm walking down to Moon River myself for the bridal processional. Then we are walking the recessional to At Last by Etta James, which I just love the little riff at the beginning. It's so cute, I think. So that'll be great. We are also having a live artist paint our wedding, which I'm so excited about because like not only is it going to be one of the coolest things in the world, and I think it'll be really cool for me and Brett and our guests to like kind of see her progress and see her at work and all that different stuff, but she is actually a member of the Feel Good Social Club. Her name is Erica Donahue, and I will link her Instagram in the show notes below. Definitely go check her out. She lives in Summit County, Colorado, where I actually used to live for several years. And she is meeting us down in Denver. And she's going to be live painting our wedding. And I'm just so freaking excited about the fact that we get our wedding live painted and also that I get to hire a Feel Good Social Club member. Like, I cannot wait. It's going to be so awesome. So I will definitely be sharing behind the scenes of that. And I'll definitely be like sharing her work that she has completed. Whenever like it happens, when the wedding happens and when she sends us the final piece and all the different stuff. But that's going to be so fun. And I think it's just one of those things that it's going to be such a fun memento to keep from our wedding. And like, it's kind of another form of entertainment for our guests, like kind of in like the little bit of mulling around time or downtime and all that stuff, which Brett is just a little concerned about, right? With like his like little bit of anxiety when it comes to the wedding planning, with the wedding process and all that stuff, right? So that's going to be super cool. I hired like a makeup artist. My maid of honor is doing my hair. I'm just trying to think of like all the vendors that we went through because there's always things that popped up. Like I was like, what? Oh yeah, I need to hire that person. And then I told my maid of honor, Mandy, who's actually a hairstylist and doing my hair, that I was probably going to do my own makeup. She's like, Kinsey, you think you're going to be able to do like mascara for yourself? Like your hands are going to be shaking. You're going to be crying. Get a makeup artist. So I was like, fine, man, I'll get a makeup artist for us. So that was fun. But anyway, I went through, I found all the vendors. I think I hit them all. I don't know. I will link all of them in the show notes below because they're all wonderful. They've all been wonderful to work with. I, of course, reached out to several vendors for most of the things to see, one, if they were available, two, and then, two, like, do I really, like, who do I resonate the most with? Personally, who do I resonate the most with their work and what feels most like me, right? And us. And so that's kind of how I chose the vendors. It all kind of came together fairly neatly, if we're honest. And then I really honed in on the vibe of the event. And this is what I'm most excited to chat with you about. Because you know me, if you've been a long-time listener to the Feel Good Social Podcast, you know that I nerd out about branding. And I even have like a method that I call the brand vibe method for honing in on your story, voice, and visuals for your brand. We have the brand vibe quiz. Like I love figuring out the story of something, figuring out the theme of something, and how do all the little pieces fit together, right? And especially for planning an event, it's been really fun because I actually have tangible decorations that I can include. I get to design. I got to design the wedding website in the same like kind of brand vibe, if you will, or wedding vibe or theme, right? I designed the programs for the wedding actually on Canva. Side note, love them. I designed the wedding menus and I got to figure out like, okay, I get to use the same colors and fonts and vibe of everything. And like, how does this wild, like haunted Victorian garden party translate into colors and fonts and the same vibe? And how can I carry this theme across like everything in this event, right? And then on the kind of back side of the coin of that, like the first thing is like, okay, our theme is haunted Victorian garden party. What does this look like? What does this feel like? How can I make it all feel cohesive and quote unquote on brand for my wedding? But then also on the flip side of that coin was thinking about how do these things reflect me and Brett, right? So that was what I was considering this whole time as I then got into the nittier, grittier details of planning the wedding and like the vibe and the cohesiveness and all that stuff, right? So that's what I was considering. The vibe of the event, our theme, Haunted Victorian Garden Party, and then parallel that with Brett and I, what do we care about? What's special to us? How can I add little personal touches that are going to make this day like special, right? And just really maybe comment on us as individuals or us as a couple. And so this was kind of what I was thinking when it came to honing in on the vibe, right? So of course, the first thing I did was go to Pinterest. I already kind of teased that ahead of time. But the first thing I did, went to my wedding Pinterest board that I already had since like high school, right? But kind of looked through it, but then just kind of started Googling wedding things and like the wedding vibe that we had and stuff, and started pinning more, because past Kinsey, 16-year-old Kinsey doesn't necessarily want the same wedding, or it doesn't necessarily fit the same theme as 31-year-old Kinsey, right? So anyway, I went to Pinterest. I started just like kind of Googling, like Victorian wedding, like haunted. No, I don't think I even put haunted because I'm like, no one's really gonna have like a haunted wedding, right? But I put garden party wedding, French garden party, just kind of started like looking through Pinterest and collecting things that I liked that I thought visually fit the vibe. And it's so funny because this is how I teach people to really hone in on their brand's visual vibe when it comes to the brand vibe method. And so it's so funny, the parallels here, right? But you just go to Pinterest, you just start pitting things that feel on brand or like your vibe. I started pinning things that felt like our wedding's vibe or that I thought was attractive or just that I might like have an idea about, even if it wasn't exactly what I wanted. I'm like, ooh, this like little cute label that goes on the mother, the bride's chair during the ceremony is cute. Like, did I create that exact same label? No, but I used that idea to create a label for the mother, the bride, father, the bride, whatever, like all of those things for the wedding ceremony, right? So if you are ever trying to hone in on something, just like pin away and then go back and analyze, right? Because that's what I did then. I went back and I analyzed the Pinterest pins that I'd had and the board that I'd created. And I started picking and pulling like different things that looked like what I wanted, the colors that I wanted, fonts that I wanted, that the decorations that might be interesting. But like, were they all the same pin? Did I find the perfect pin for my wedding? Like, no. But when you start kind of looking at it all together, you can kind of see, ooh, I'll pick this thing out of this pin. Ooh, I want this tablecloth. Ooh, I would love to find something that's like a menu, or I'd love to create a menu program that's like this or something like that, right? So that's what I recommend that you do if you ever need to do a wedding or branding of any sort. Once I kind of did that, I started kind of picking through, okay, what really fits our theme and what do Brett and I really like? And this is also paralleled with like, what does the gardens allow, right? So, the gardens doesn't allow for open flame. So I decided against like candlesticks and stuff, even though Brett and I would both love candlesticks, especially him, Gothic vampire lover as he is. He actually would have loved candlesticks, but it's really, really hard to find candlesticks or a candelabra with like an enclosed flame feature, right? So instead, what we were doing are like lots and lots and lots of little mini tea lights. And we're putting little mini tea lights in different amber and champagne colored vintage looking glass holders, right? That I think I got for cheap on Amazon, if we're honest, because I was like, I just got to get the decorations that I need out of the way and stuff. But I found them for very cheap, like 24. I think I ended up like getting like 50 of them, right? In amber and champagne. And we're going to have them like all around the tables, right? And then what I really wanted to do was like those wildflower like arrangements, right? Like lots and lots of different wild looking wildflower arrangements with different kinds of flowers. And they're not very like uniform and all that different stuff, because I love that look of just like having a lot of wild looking arrangements on a table. And so I ordered like a bunch of different glass vases, like vintage looking glass vases of different sizes, right? And then I was looking into flowers, and honestly, because it was in October, I was like, oh man, like I have no idea what the flower situation is going to be like in October. It's also very expensive to order flowers, right? And I have always had a thing for dried flowers myself. Like I always love, honestly, drying flowers. Like whenever Brett gets me a bouquet of something, it usually ends up hanging upside down for like a week instead of actually going into a vase to dry it out, right? So I decided that that goes with the dead theme. That's one of the ways we're making this quote unquote dead/haunted is dead flowers, right? So instead of spending a lot of money on flowers, I actually went out and collected a lot of different types of flowers and foliage in this area where we have been most of the summer, Salida, Colorado, which is where Brett's parents live. But anyway, I went out and got a bunch of wildflowers in the surrounding area. And then also I got actually most of our flowers from Brett's mom's like garden, right? So she was growing like yarrow. She has lavender. She has Russian sage in her yard. She has like regular flowers that I've tried drying and all the different stuff. Also, I found that some of her herbs really created beautiful flowers through the summer. So actually her parsley is like purple, right? Purple flowers. And so it's really pretty. So I created all these kind of wild, different looking arrangements and lots of different sized vases. And it's really been special to me because we saved money. And also it's been fun for me to do that. Like, yes, my allergies have been terrible, but because of the pollen, but oh well, I think it's going to end up being really, really beautiful. And I think that the dried flower aspect of it and the flowers that I chose and the wildness of the arrangements is actually going to kind of help to make it feel like kind of creepy, yet still classy, right? Creepy, yet classy. That's been my mantra for this haunted Victorian Garden Party theme this whole time. Because everyone's like, oh, are you going to do like boo, like ghosts and pumpkins? I'm like, instead of like a boo ghost, think like white woman walking through a garden at a distance kind of ghost, right? Like that's what I'm going for. In like a long white Victorian dress. That's the kind of creepy we're going for with this wedding, right? So anyway, the flower arrangements are all made. I'll definitely be sharing photos of them because I love them. I also created little bouquets for our aisle seats to kind of like decorate during the ceremony, right? To kind of keep that cohesiveness of the flowers through the ceremony. And then the caterers are going to flip the space and bring out the dried arrangement bouquets that I've created for the tables, lots and lots of wild ones. I got some like kind of sandy looking cheesecloths to go as runners for the table to kind of go with the French garden party theme, right? I created menus and all that jazz. Let's see, the menus, so when it comes to all of the printable and like the graphic design aspect of the wedding, that was super fun for me, right? Because of course I love graphic design. And so I got to choose the fonts. It's kind of this like stampy looking font along with kind of more of I don't even know how to describe it. I'll just have to share photos. But, of course, the fonts are like uniform throughout the menus and the programs and the wedding website that I created for us, which let me go ahead and drop the wedding website URL. It's brettandkinsey.com, BRETT and Kinsey, KINSEY.com. I'll link it in the show notes. So go ahead and check it out. I mean, the wedding already happened, so I'm not that worried about personal information getting out or anything like that. But I'm kind of proud of this wedding website. I'll actually be sharing a mini-sode about it on Thursday with inspiration from our About page that you could totally use for your brand's wedding website, brettandkinsey.com. But all the fonts are kind of the same within that website, right? And then the fonts and the colors that I used on the website, I then carried into our wedding programs and our wedding menus that I created and all that different stuff, right? So that was the next piece of the puzzle that I then created. The wedding website, I kind of had this I kind of kept it like dark, moody colors, but still pretty looking and all that stuff. I'm not going to get into detail about it. Just go to brettandkinsey.com if you want to check it out. It's kind of fun to look at. Well, for me anyway, because, it's me. But anyway, then I carried from the wedding website that I created, which we did instead of physical invites, right? Because we just didn't want to, honestly, it's such a small wedding. We didn't want to waste the paper, and it was all happening fairly quickly. I planned this thing in 3 months. So, I was like, okay, it's getting to time where I really don't know if I have that much time to send out wedding invitations physically. Let's just do the website. So anyway, from the website, then I created our wedding programs, same fonts, same kind of graphic, stampy flower detail that I use in the website, I used in the programs. And I actually found that on Canva and created that in Canva. I layered 2 of these stampy flowers over one another with different colors. And so it kind of looks like someone just took a stamp and stamped it on there. It's very, very cool. And the wedding program itself, the front, it's kind of a cool design, I think, including it's kind of wild looking again, because I have that flower element. And then on the back side of our programs, I, the nerd that I am, actually created a crossword puzzle about Brett and I, right? And it's not just every question about Brett and Kinsey, but it's what's the capital of Thailand? Because we have traveled there and that was a part of our journey, right? So some of the questions are what is Brett and Kinsey's newest dog's name or something like that, right? But also some of the questions are things you can Google. But I think that's sure, it's nerdy, whatever, but I'm very proud of it. And I think it's going to be kind of fun because we have a lot of puzzlers in our family, right? And also it is kind of fun. I included what's Kinsey's middle name? What's Brett's middle name? There's questions about each of us individually as well that our guests won't all know. And so underneath the wedding crossword puzzle, I put a little note. I'm we encourage you to ask other guests about their answers. You know what I mean? Because I think it will help to get people just talking and stuff during the down times while they're waiting for the ceremony to begin and whatnot, right? So that was very fun. I did create the crossword puzzle and the front of the program in Canva itself. It was not easy. Let me tell you that. I kind of just did it in a very janky way. I didn't use a program or anything like that. I'm sure they have an online program that makes creating a crossword puzzle easy. I did not. I just wrote out a bunch of words and tried to smush them all together and figure it out, which thankfully I did not take me that long. But anyway, yes, it was very fun to create these in Canva. And honestly, they printed out beautifully. I didn't actually print them out using Canva's print out feature. I used a different company for the programs themselves, just because I wanted a nice paper that you could write on for sure, right? For the crossword puzzle. So I ended up printing on linen, cream linen paper or something, but they printed so beautifully. I'm so happy with them. And I designed them in Canva. I love it so much. I also ordered mini golf pencils that I'm going to put a little sign at the entrance that says please take a program and a pencil, for them to do the crossword puzzle. I'm very much excited and going to push people to complete their crossword puzzles because I worked very hard on them. But anyway, it's just kind of a fun little extra something, right? So we're going to have a little champagne colored glass teacup holding our Brett and Kinsey forever mini golf pencils, and then, yeah, they do say Brett and Kinsey on them, the mini golf pencils. Just side note, if I didn't make that clear, I got them off Etsy for $15 or something. But anyway, that's the wedding programs. That's going on our little front welcome table along with our guest book we're doing Polaroids, right? So we have this kind of vintage refurbished Polaroid camera. So we're having guests like snap a photo of themselves and then write a little sweet note in this little photo album that I got for the wedding. So that's going to be great. And then I also created, I kind of hinted at this earlier, little print out like reserved for the mother of the bride, reserved for the mother of the groom, reserved for the father of the groom, tags to go on the seats, along with the aisle little bouquets I created with our dried flowers. And then I created our wedding menus as well. And the wedding menus I'm so proud of and excited for, because once again, created them on Canva. And actually for everything else except for the programs, we printed them out on Brett's mom's printer using like just stock paper that she had, like cardstock paper that she had. And I was very impressed, not only with her printer, but also with like Canva's ability to print out like awesome, like, I don't know, work or whatever, you know what I mean? So like, yes, fully support using Canva. I'll have to look at Brett's mom's printer. I think it's like an HP Envy something. I don't know. But anyway, we printed them out on Brett's mom's printer, and then we ended up getting kind of crafty. Brett's mom is super crafty, and we glued them on to some vintage, like textured, flowery cream wallpaper that she had left over from her daughter's wedding, right? So she had this like vintage textured, flowery wallpaper from her daughter's wedding, and we glued the wedding menus onto that. And then we also printed out everyone's names individually on vellum. It's like a kind of almost see-through smoky type of paper and stuff. And so everyone has like their individual place cards attached to their little menu that's on this awesome vintage wallpaper, right? Which kind of goes with the Victorian Garden Party theme. Like it all kind of has been working out and fitting together once I figured out, okay, we're doing somewhat of a wild, creepy yet classy vintage Victorian feel to everything. Like how does everything fit together? Things just started coming together, right? So like with the decorations, they all are kind of fitting that vibe. All of the different printables are kind of fitting that vibe. Then we found this vintage wallpaper, which is super awesome. And I'm using the wallpaper as backing for all of the other like signs that we're printing out, such as like welcome, please take a program and a pencil, right? Please sign our guest book kind of signs, right? I printed those out using Canva, using the same fonts, using the same flower graphics that I've been using this entire time. And then as a backing, I am using that vintage wallpaper, and I'm putting them in like old metal frames and stuff, like picture frames that Brett's mom got at a garage sale for free. Actually, she's like, I probably should have bought something else, but the lady was just giving those away for free, and that's all I needed. I was like, thank you. Great find. We have like 10 frames that are like brass/gold, like metal, vintagey, old looking photo frames, right? But I'm using them for our signs for our wedding. And so everything is kind of fitting together in all these themes. My dress is kind of like floral lace on the top, long sleeve, and then it's kind of like a flowy skirt and stuff like that, but it kind of looks a little vintagey too, right? And I still haven't figured out what Brett's wearing. He has something. I haven't seen it on. I don't know what color tie he's wearing, or if he's wearing a tie. He'll figure it out. It's fine. But anyway, everything is just kind of coming together when it comes to this theme. And the thing that I want to point out when it comes to, honing in on a theme for an event or like your vibe or whatever that is to just like have those core pieces that you keep going back to, right? And it doesn't have to mean like red or yellow, right? Because honestly, we don't really have wedding colors. Like, yes, I have been using the same colors for the fonts and the flowers and all the printables and stuff like that, but they don't really stand out as colors. And honestly, we're only having one best man and one maid of honor in our wedding party. Like, I think that my maid of honor is wearing a green dress, which is really pretty, but I wouldn't really care what color she was wearing if it was just kind of like a little fall-y, I kind of gave her the choice of whatever color she wanted to wear. We aren't really having wedding colors, there's like we didn't really have very specific guidelines that we were going by, but we were going by like those descriptive words that I decided on, which was like haunted Victorian garden party, creepy yet classy, or classy yet a little creepy. Because we gotta get a little bit of creepiness in there. And I feel like there was another thing that I was always had in the back of my mind. Oh, just like another thing I was always keeping in mind when I was honing in and making decisions on the vibe of the event and what I wanted things to look like, and the decorations and all that stuff were those descriptive words. And then also Brett and I and our relationship, right? Because that's what the event is about, is us. So all of the decisions I made when it comes to the vibe of the event and the experience that the guests have and all that different stuff, it has to do with those theme words. And then also if it is personable or, reflective of Brett and Mai's relationship or us as individuals, right? Like special to us, which is how we came up with like the songs that we're walking down the aisle to, and what we're eating for lunch and all that different stuff, right? So that's another big takeaway that I just want you to have when it comes to planning these sort of things, is to just have your like totems, have your guideposts to hold on to that are going to help you make those decisions when it comes to your event's vibe and theme, and everything will start to come together. I chose the decorations that I chose because they felt like a garden party, and or they felt Victorian, and or they felt slightly creepy. And I made the decisions when it came to the wedding programs and like the little individual pieces, the songs and all that stuff, because they mean something to me and Brett, right? And so that is what I used to make decisions when it came to all this different stuff, and everything just kind of has fit together in a way. And so I think it's going to turn out really pretty. I think that our guests are really going to enjoy it, actually. And I'm super, super excited for the day. And I hope that it went well. I mean, as of you listening to this episode, it happened yesterday. So cross your fingers for me that it did go well. We will see. I'm also trying to let go of the outcome, right? I was just having a conversation with one of my Feel Good Social Clubbers about this in the DMs earlier today, actually, because she's like, I wish I just would have let go of everything having to be perfect. I'm like, yep, okay, embracing that. Planning, and then going to embrace just letting things go, going with the flow day of. So hopefully that happens too. Send good vibes to me if possible. But anyway, that is our wedding day. Oh, I forgot to mention the cake. Oh, so Alice in Flowerland is our cake lady. I'll also link her. I knew I was forgetting a vendor, but the cake itself is a chocolate espresso cake with a salted caramel frosting, naked frosted. And then it has a raspberry drizzle that is dripping down the side, kind of creepy, looking like blood, we are hoping. So that's just another way we're incorporating some of Brett's like gothic vampire dreams into our wedding, right? And like making it a little creepy yet classy. That's what I told Alice in Flowerland, who's doing our cake. So I think she'll nail it, though. I think she'll nail it. If you want to see a photo, I should be sharing photos soon of all of these things, right? So head to @FeelGoodSocial on Instagram if you want to check out all the visuals of everything I've been trying to describe to you during today's episode. And check out brettandkinsey.com, our wedding website, if you want to see that. And actually, like I said, I will be sharing a mini-sode on Thursday that is 6 fun things you can include in your About Me page on your website for your brand. And it's inspired by Brett and Mai's story page on our wedding website. So that's going to be kind of fun. So brettandkinsey.com. Don't forget to come back and listen on Thursday for the episode, because I promise you it's going to be very, very actionable. Like I'm totally going to redo Feel Good Social's About Me page and add the things that I am suggesting in the mini-sode on Thursday, right? So don't forget to listen to that. And thank you so much for tuning into today's episode, my friend. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope I wasn't just rambling too much about the wedding or anything like that. I hope that you found it to be interesting and enjoyable, and just maybe got some, fun tips out of it or something. And just honestly, thank you so much for tuning in and celebrating with me on this week. It's been quite a whirlwind relationship, and planning this wedding has been a whirlwind too. And so I'm so grateful to be able to share the journey with you and give you a little behind the scenes peek into what it looked like in the big day and all that stuff. So thank you so much for celebrating, my friend. I appreciate you so much. I will see you on Thursday for our mini-sode, and I hope you have a great rest of your week. I will catch you next time I catch you. Thanks so much for listening, my friend. For show notes and a whole lot of other awesome freebies, visit feelgoodsocial.com. Simply go to feelgoodsocial.com for all the goods.